Welcome back to World Insight. This week, U.S. forces in Iraq met their June 30th deadline to complete their withdrawal from urban areas and to hand over full control to Iraqi security forces. The pullback is seen as a milestone on Iraq's road to sovereignty, 6 years after the U.S. military invaded to topple Saddam Hussein. But now doubts are rising. Will Iraq be an emerging state or a state of emergency?
Fireworks lit the Baghdad sky instead of bombs, 6 years after the U.S. invasion. Iraqis celebrated their first National Sovereignty Day on June 30th. The U.S. had just completed its withdrawal from the urban areas. Iraqi forces assumed control of the towns and cities. Nowhere was this more evident than in Baghdad's heavily fortified Green Zone government and diplomatic district. The place was viewed as the ultimate symbol of the foreign military presence until local forces took control in January. A day before the parade, the U.S. military handed back the former Defense Ministry building to the Iraqis. The U.S. had taken over the building after the invasion.
Actually, we're very happy about Iraqi security forces assuming responsibility. God willing, they will be able to maintain security. Long live Iraq.
The handover to Iraqi forces filled many citizens with pride, but also trepidation that violence will rise. They fear a full U.S. withdrawal leaves them open to attack. Abu Zainab has a workshop in Sheikh Omar, Baghdad city's industrial area. He decided to shut down for a while.
I informed my workers that we will not open the workshop for 2 to 3 days. Who knows what will happen in the next few days? Chaos or bombings, or the armed groups will return with violence.
Abu Zainab's worries are reasonable. The same day the U.S. withdrew its combat troops from Iraqi cities, a car bomb exploded in a crowded outdoor market in the northern city of Kirkuk, killing at least 33 people. Bombings and shootings have killed more than 250 people since June 20th. The deadly attacks raise doubts about whether it is the right time for U.S. troops to pull out.
Americans' intention is clear: step back wisely under the mounting domestic and international criticism while pulling the strings behind the scene to assure its strategic interests. The war was fought.
The withdrawal is part of a security pact signed last November. There are still 130,000 U.S. soldiers in Iraq. President Barack Obama has said all combat troops will be gone by the end of August 2010. All American forces will be out by the end of December 2011. This withdrawal just means redeployment. The U.S. troops will continue combat operations in rural areas and near the border, but only with the Iraqi government's permission. They will return to the cities only if asked. And some 35,000 to 50,000 troops will remain in the cities to train and advise Iraqi forces.
But we will be here. We are not leaving. We still will have 130,000 people on the ground on July 1st, as we did on June 30th. And we will be here to continue to train, advise. We'll continue to conduct full-spectrum operations. We'll continue to be in support of the Iraqi security forces to maintain and improve stability throughout the country.
The U.S. commitment offers confidence to the 650,000-member Iraqi military to maintain stability and deal with a stubborn insurgency.
The Iraqi government is confident of the ability of its security and military forces in handling the security issue and controlling the situation, despite attacks and bombings by terrorist groups. These attacks will have no effect on this process.
The surge of U.S. and Iraqi security forces has battered al-Qaeda's strongholds in the war-torn country. Its presence has shrunk to just a few northern cities like Mosul and parts of Baghdad. The U.S. says the membership of al-Qaeda in Iraq has plunged from thousands at its peak to hundreds now.
We think Iraq is ready. I think Iraq thinks Iraq is ready. We've spent a lot of time, working very closely with Iraq's security services. I know we've talked to the Prime Minister and other senior leaders, and I think there's an understanding that now's the time.
But analysts say violence is likely to intensify in the run-up to parliamentary elections next January. Difficult days are ahead.
The readiness which the government spoke about is not just the readiness of military units. There are internal challenges, political challenges, and security challenges concerning the neighboring countries, which the government must be ready for.
The most urgent challenge is reconciliation. Iraqi officials say the attacks aim at reigniting sectarian warfare that raged for years between once dominant Sunni Muslims and majority Shiites. Shiites fear more bombings by Sunni militants, and Sunnis fear that the Shiite-dominated Iraq security forces will give them little protection.
For hundreds of years, Iraq was dominated by Sunnis who make up only 20% of the population. The frame was broken by the U.S. invasion. Iraq entered into the Shiite-led time. The Sunnis were marginalized, which led to increased terrorist violence. The political landscape in Iraq is still uncertain, and Iraq will have a long way before maintaining stability.
Political and security uncertainty has left the country's reconstruction stagnant. Iraq sits on the world's third largest oil reserves. But after decades of sanctions, neglect, and war, the industry is in desperate need of investment. On June 30th, Iraq launched its first major energy auction since the invasion.
The Ministry of Oil has the ambition to increase the production of these fields up to 1.5 million barrels a day to be added to the recent production. In total, there will be 4 million barrels. The expected revenue from these fields only for the next 20 years is about $1.7 trillion US.
Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki called it the start of a new era. But what are the hopes of ordinary Iraqis for the start of a new life?
The Iraqis are capable and ready to maintain security when the Americans withdraw, and God willing, we are brothers and there's no difference between Shiites and Sunnis, and we are happy.
Let fear and hardship fade into memory. No troops, no fighting. This is the life Iraqis want.
Well, no matter what, Iraq's political situation remains unsettled. Tensions have grown between Baghdad and the minority Kurds who are living up in the north. All eyes will now be on a parliamentary election in January that will test al-Maliki and Iraq's fledgling democracy. Iraq's future is now in the hands of its own people. Its Sunni, Shiite and Kurdish leaders have to make some hard choices to resolve disputes to achieve true political reconciliation. That's the end of that story, but up next we'll talk about Bernard Madoff and his part in the US financial crisis. Stay with us for all that.